Well, good afternoon and welcome. Today in the primary sector in New Zealand, we're facing a lot of challenges, and these challenges have largely come from the COVID environment, but going forward, what we know is that we need to grow our way out of these challenges. And some of the things we need to grow our way out of these challenges is water supply. We need water for plants to grow, for animals to be fed, for humans to be fed. But we also need labour. And today's session is about how can we get the amount of workers, how can we create the new careers that we need going forward so we get the exports we need from New Zealand for the COVID recovery. I'm very fortunate to be joined today from Dairy, Jeff, and we've got the Minister of Agriculture, Damien O'Connor. Welcome, Damien. And we have Surma from the meat processing side. So what we're going to do is engage you in a discussion around how we can solve this very tough problem, getting the workers, creating the careers going forward. Because what farmers and growers really want now is they want certainty about where they're going to get their workers. They want certainty about people who have careers. So the first segment is we're going to talk about redeploying New Zealanders. But to start that segment, Surma, would you like to explain what your requirements through the meat processing sector are?
Yes, well, thank you, Mike, and thank you all for the opportunity to join you on today's seminar and this very important session to talk about labour issues and how collectively we can redeploy New Zealanders looking for new opportunities and new careers in the agricultural sector so that we can continue to produce and export and contribute to New Zealand's economic recovery. Just a little bit about the meat industry for those that may not have all the background. We are essentially the second largest export industry in New Zealand. Last year we had an export of $9 billion worth of export revenue. We are also the largest manufacturing industry in New Zealand, employing some 25,000 people throughout the country, and that amounts to about 5% of the New Zealand's total employment. We, despite being a large industry and despite being, really important in terms of both the processing and for the farming constituents, we continue to face some significant labour shortages, ongoing about 2,000 people throughout New Zealand. We have opportunities in a whole host of different roles, right from entry level through to experienced hands and right into management and export management. And, this really is an opportunity to look outside the square and look at how we can reposition our industry to attract new workers and, people that are looking for new careers to support the sector.
So the importance of that is there's a significant processing industry that needs a lot of people, and those people can come from New Zealanders who may unfortunately not have the jobs they once had. But I'd now like to turn to Jeff, to the largest export sector in New Zealand and certainly the key and rock of our future recovery. Jeff, can you talk about the dairy sector's labour requirements and the potential for redeployment?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. When you're being so nice, I do get a little bit nervous, but that's okay.
We are being recorded.
So, yes, look, certainly, the dairy sector employs roughly 35,000 people throughout the economy, and that's just on farm. So there's another another 10,000 employed by Fonterra and more in other processors around the countryside. I can't speak for them, but certainly from the on-farm point of view, we've got some significant challenges around the countryside, in particular with the reliance that we've grown on migrant labour, and we've grown that reliance as a result of some pretty thin labour markets around the countryside, people moving into cities. All those sort of dynamics have meant that the pressure has really been on labour out in the rural sector where our farms are. We're not as close to urban centres as some of the agricultural sector. So there's been some real pressure for farmers to find staff, and as one of the areas that's helped us out significantly has been access to temporary migrant labour. Now we think this year, our estimates are that this year there's around about 1,000 extra jobs advertised out on farm there, once again at many levels, from farm assistant through to assistant farm manager. In particular, are the sort of roles that are being vacated as temporary work visas end. Although I must say, it's been fantastic that the government and the agricultural sector has been able to work together, and there have been some pragmatic solutions that have been developed over the last wee while, and we have seen many of those visas extended. But we know that as that happens, some of the people who are perhaps in the mid to lower skilled end of the spectrum are likely to roll off, and we've historically over the last few years had probably around about 5,000 temporary work visas. We expect that at least 3,000 to 4,000 of them will be likely to be going home in the next 12 to 18 months, depending on how COVID plays out.
So, this is really a marvellous opportunity for a lot of New Zealanders now to become really involved in the primary sector and have a great career. I'd like to turn to you, Minister. A week or so ago, the Prime Minister launched a fantastic campaign for the future, Fit for a Better World. Would you like to explain how that really links into what we've just been talking about here, the need to get New Zealanders into the primary sector so we can keep the growth and recovery for New Zealand running?
Look, thanks, Mike. And clearly one of the objectives of that was to get 10,000 more Kiwis into the primary sectors. That's one of the specified goals. The overall objective of Fit for a Better Future is actually to get more value for everything that we do at every level of our systems of production, right from the farm, right through to manufacturing and marketing. And there are some great examples of where that is happening. Kiwi fruit industry would be one. And dairy's done that really well over the years as well. So we want to replicate that out and build more billion-dollar businesses. That's what we're focused on. But utilising, the skills and innovation and the energy of Kiwis is a really good place to start. And I think I've been talking to people across every sector, they've, struggled, as is actually the international challenge, to bring the smartest, most innovative people into the areas of food and fibre production. And for a whole lot of reasons, it's just not seen as sexy, I guess. People have been moving into software, IT and that. And as I say, it's an international trend. So we have to, I guess, reset a few things. And COVID, unfortunately, it's come along, it's not something that we would ever want, has provided an opportunity to reset a few things. And there will be, unfortunately, a bigger pool of New Zealanders looking for new job opportunities. They'll be looking to change their careers. And we've put significant money into the support of that. I think there's about $3.5 million going into a Go Dairy campaign, some government money, some dairy industry to try and go out there and bring people in. We've committed another $19 million to help get 10,000 people in. Look, there's a whole lot of initiatives there facing up to the reality of this COVID challenge.
Yes, no, thank you, Minister. And from my point of view, I come from the horticulture sector, and we employ around 60,000 people. A lot of those people are seasonal workers, and the importance of those seasonal workers, who some of them come from offshore, is they drive our ability to keep growing, and they drive our ability to grow and sustain that growth. So going forward, we all have, from the free sectors, and we're the third largest export sector, horticulture, viticulture, we all have the ability to do what is needed for New Zealand and grow. And what the Minister has just pointed out is the government supporting us to do exactly that. And what we need to be doing is looking at how we can redeploy New Zealanders. Because, we don't know what's going to happen with COVID. The ability for us to rely on offshore labour for the future is essentially gone. Things may change, they may not. But, you really can't rely on that. And there's a really good message in here that we can actually rely on our own country to take us forward. But just before we close this session, I'll just ask Surma if you've got anything to add. You've got about 1 minute of talk, and then we'll just wind up the session before we go into the next segment.
No, I think just to echo what some of you have already mentioned, it's certainly an opportunity here to step up and redeploy New Zealanders that are looking for opportunities in the primary industries, and the support of government that we've already seen is really excellent, and we look forward to continuing to work with government and with others to make this happen for the betterment and the well-being of New Zealanders as a whole.
No, thank you, Surma. Jeff?
Yeah, certainly, very, very keen to work to get Kiwis into the dairy sector. I guess as an industry, farmers would like people to know that we understand that there are some pretty big challenges. It takes quite a lot of commitment to lift yourself up out of Auckland and to go and work in the middle of the Waikato, or out of Canterbury and go and work in the middle of South Otago. It requires, you can't just kind of experiment like you can in town. So we're putting quite a lot of emphasis in the Go Dairy campaign, which we thank MPI for and MSD. We're putting quite a bit of emphasis on getting a good preview of what life in a rural community looks like. And I guess for those people who have actually been courageous enough to take the leap, there has certainly been some great opportunities open up for their careers and for their families. Our rural communities, our vibrant rural communities, are actually great places to live, and we really do encourage people to take a look. And on the other hand, we also need to remind farmers or employers out there that these people who are potentially coming out of town, they are a little bit different to perhaps what our usual employees look like, and we need to think about how we treat them differently, or how we work with them differently to help them succeed. And perhaps a plea from me is that we will see that the demand for staff will really start to pick up through summer and autumn next year, leading into the new season. I'd really like farmers to think about employing early, giving people a chance to get some skills under their belt before such time as they're faced with the pressures of calving.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point. And as we come into spring and horticulture, our harvest starts. We start with vegetables, asparagus, and into strawberries. But as we move into summer, it gets into cherries and citrus, apples and kiwi fruit. And so, we're probably at one of the low points in terms of employment across all the sectors at this point. Admittedly, in wine, there's winter pruning going on, same in kiwi fruit. But as September ends, we go into a little bit of a quiet period. But what we now need to do is we need to build up our workforce for the future and build up those Kiwis who can come into that workforce. So in the next segment, we're going to be talking about how we actually do that. So we've told you there is a demand. What we are not certain of is where the supply is going to come from. We know there are people in town. The mind boggles when you think about a barista milking a cow. He may be great at morning tea, but there's some changes that need to be done, and it's all about aptitude and recalibrating. And that's what we really want to cover in the next segment, is how we can actually do that. So do join us in a few minutes for how we convert the townie to the best rural worker you could ever find.